The scene begins with peculiar girl named Wednesday Addams. Despite being only 13, the little girl barely shows any emotions and has a weird obsession to death. She is also infamous for wearing black and white Gothic clothes, which everyone finds strange. In the first scene, Wednesday arrives at her high school with a creepy look on her face. In the next scene, Pugsley, her brother, is bound inside her locker with an apple in his mouth as she helps him out. Wednesday has a vision of the bullies who tortured her brother. And we learn here that she has the ability to see someone's past and future simply by touching them. Once she finds out the group who bullied her brother are in the pool, she walks into the swimming room with 2 bags full of piranhas. Then, she casually unleashes the bloodthirsty piranhas in the pool. As the bullies run for their lives in horror, Wednesday makes it clear that nobody picks on her brother except her. In the next scene we meet Wednesday's parents Morticia and Gomez. They are fed up with their daughter and have decided to send her to the prestigious Nevermore Academy. All the students at this academy have supernatural abilities and they are taught how to control them. Morticia and Gomez are both graduates of the same academy, implying that they too have superpowers. Meanwhile, a hiker embarks on a solo journey through the woods near the Nevermore Academy. Unfortunately, just after a few minutes, an unknown creature attacks him and finishes him off. The local sheriff finds the mutilated body later and begins surveying the area. Surprisingly, we learn that this grisly murder isn't the first of its kind. Wednesday then arrives at the academy and meets Principal Larissa Weems, who runs Nevermore with ease. She introduces Wednesday to her roommate Enid, a werewolf who is in every way the opposite of Wednesday. Enid is a laid-back girl with brightly colored decorations on her side of the room, whereas Wednesday is obsessed with all things black and goth. Enid gives Wednesday a grand tour of the academy while pointing out the main school groups: Fangs, Furs, Stoners, and Scales. Fangs are vampires, Furs are werewolves, Stoners are gorgons with snakes on their heads, and Scales are sirens, who have the ability to manipulate people. Enid also shows her the most popular girl in school, Bianca Barkley, a gorgeous siren, and her ex-boyfriend Xavier Thorpe, a death artist who can transform his drawings into reality. Meanwhile, as the Addams family departs in their car, Gomez releases Thing, a chopped-off, living hand.
Yeah, boy.
Thing is tasked with keeping watch over their daughter. The following day, Wednesday joins fencing class where she is pitted against the impressive Bianca. After a bit of back and forth, the girls end up with equal points, so they decide to remove their masks and fight until someone draws blood first. Them matching each other stride for stride. However, in the end Bianca triumphs when she slashes a small cut on Wednesday's cheek. Later, as Wednesday exits the infirmary after getting patched up from the cut, she is almost crushed to death by a falling stone gargoyle. Luckily, the death artist, Xavier, arrives just in time and pushes her out of the way. Wednesday returns to her room shortly after, but she suspects that someone is watching her. As a result, she searches the room and eventually finds Thing the Hand. Wednesday threatens the Hand to be loyal to her, or else she will lock him up in a drawer. Terrified, Thing vows to be faithful. She is required to attend mandatory therapy sessions as a result of Wednesday's piranha attack. Larissa, her principal, drives her to her therapy session in Jericho, a small town outside of Nevermore. She meets with her therapist but does not discuss anything. Wednesday, on the other hand, has another plan. She excuses herself to use the restroom, which she runs away through the window. She accidentally runs into a man outside. She has a vision in which she witnesses the man's death. Terrified, Wednesday goes to a nearby coffee shop. In the shop she encounters the sheriff's son, Tyler, who is a barista. Tyler was experiencing some mechanical difficulties with his espresso machine as the instructions in it were in Italian. He was having a hard time understanding it, but thankfully, Wednesday can read Italian. She fixes the device effortlessly and in return asks for a lift to the nearest bus stop, but before Tyler can respond, a trio of bullies dressed as pilgrims storm the store. Wednesday tries to ignore them, but when she has had enough, she fights back and easily smacks them down. After a while, Principal Larissa arrives at the store with the sheriff and notices the conflict. Enraged, she scolds Wednesday before driving her away from the town. On their way to the academy, they pass a terrible car wreck. The victim is the same man who Wednesday saw in her vision earlier. Later that night, she plays a haunting song on her cello in the dorm balcony. As it is a full moon night and we can hear several werewolves howling in the distance, Enid, who is a werewolf herself, reveals that she will not join them because she cannot transform. Meanwhile, Thing enters Tyler's room and requests that he call Wednesday. Despite the fear, he agrees and the two begin video chatting. Wednesday invites Tyler to meet her at the harvest fair the next day, claiming that it will be enjoyable. In reality, she just wants to get out of the academy. At the fair, we see Larissa watching over Wednesday. Despite this, the Wednesday somehow manages to catch up with Tyler. The two almost escape the place, but just then, Wednesday stumbles into one of her classmates, Rowan. He immediately runs into the woods, and since Wednesday touched him, she has a vision. Rowan has been brutally mauled to death by someone. Terrified, she has a change of heart and goes after him to impart the news. But before she can say anything, Rowan uses his telekinesis ability and secures her high up on a tree. He then reveals that his mother, a powerful seer, envisioned Wednesday destroying the Nevermore Academy 25 years ago. Hence, Rowan believes that he has to kill her before anything bad happens. He then starts choking her telekinetically, but suddenly a massive monster leaps in, tears Rowan apart, and vanishes into thin air. Wednesday stands over his mutilated body and sees the illustration his mother supposedly drew of her. Police officers led by the sheriff begin searching for Rowan's body, but they are unsuccessful. The sheriff, as expected, does not believe Wednesday's claim of a monster attacking Rowan and believes it was a Nevermore student. An officer interrupts their conversation and we see Rowan, who is still alive. When Wednesday arrives at her room, she notices that her roommate, Enid, is too preoccupied with the poke-up competition, an annual boat riding game. Later, Wednesday tries talking to Rowan, but Principal Larissa informs her that he has been expelled for a reason she can't share. As a result, Wednesday asks Thing to keep an eye on Rowan. The scene then cuts to Rowan, who has arrived at the train station, with Thing closely following him. After observing the surroundings, he covertly heads to the restroom and changes his appearance into that of an old man.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Unfortunately, Thing loses track of him and misses this transformation. Later, the old man changes to Principal Larissa. This reveals that she is actually a shapeshifter, and for some reason, she is covering up Rowan's murder. Left with no options, Wednesday ventures into the woods to look for Rowan's murder clues. She is accompanied by Tyler, who is stalking his dad. After a while, she finds Rowan's glasses, and as she picks them up, she has a vision. In the vision, she sees a purple book, from which Rowan got the drawing. Wasting no time, Wednesday confronts her class teacher about the book, and the latter reveals that it belonged to an old student society called the Nightshades. However, the society has been long disbanded. After school, Wednesday sneaks into Rowan's room to look for the book. She finds a mask underneath his bed, but before she can leave, Xavier arrives. It turns out he is Rowan's roommate. Wednesday quickly hides under the bed, and right then, Bianca also arrives to visit her ex. She overhears their conversation and learns that Bianca is planning to crush Enid in the upcoming boat riding competition. Hence, as soon as she returns to her room, Wednesday decides to help Enid by joining the competition so that they can take Bianca down. The next day, Wednesday and Enid gear up for the competition. As there are no rules, it is all fair game, and Bianca is using this to her advantage. There are 4 teams in the game, is that they have to row their boat to a destination and be back. Whoever is the first one to arrive at the finish line, without being knocked out in the lake, is declared the winner. As the contest begins, Bianca hints at one of her friends, who is ready to sabotage the other boats. The friend, who turns out to be a mermaid, dives into the lake and destroys one of the boats, effectively knocking out the team. Fortunately, Wednesday and Enid are prepared, and with Thing's assistance they manage to capture the mermaid. Wednesday, on the other hand, has a different vision during the competition. This time she sees a blonde-haired version of herself who informs her that she is the key. Confused, Wednesday snaps into reality, only to find that Bianca's team is leading the race. Unwilling to give up, she and Enid decide to play dirty. They use Bianca's underhand methods against her and finally win the competition. With this, a non-siren team has won the esteemed competition for the first time in 4 decades. Later, the winning team is honored by Principal Larissa, who hands Enid the poke-up trophy. However, Wednesday is unable to withstand the attention and seeks refuge with Edgar Allan Poe, a former student of the Nevermore Academy. Suddenly, she sees a symbol underneath the stone book he's holding. It is the same symbol that was carved in the picture Rowan had handed her before he was mauled to death. Wednesday solves a series of riddles etched in the book quickly and discovers a clue that is snapping twice. When she snaps suddenly, a secret corridor opens, revealing a hidden chamber. There, Wednesday successfully finds Rowan's book, from which he had torn the picture. She puts the book in her backpack, but before she can go further, someone thrusts a black sack over her head. Shortly after, when the sack is taken off, she is surrounded by Bianca, Xavier and a few other students who are members of the Nightshades Club. Although the group had previously been disbanded, Principal Larissa secretly reinstated it. Xavier invites Wednesday to join their group, but she declines and walks away. In the next scene, we see man in the picture is actually the founder of annual outreach Joseph, where the Nevermore students will have to mingle Wednesday with normal people, to volunteer also known as normies, by working alongside them at their establishments. There, once they arrive in town, a young Wednesday tells Xavier that his roommate might have. The two begin talking right away and begin observing their surroundings because he was only the world's caretaker. Despite this, the Wednesday shows him the picture Rowan's mother drew and tells them about takes a close look at it and reveals that the most prized possessions. Wednesday inquires further about the artifacts and discovers that they contain original farm tools, tableware and even the family chamber pot. She wants to work there but is unable to due to renovations. Instead, they'll all be working at the old fudgery distributing fudge and cakes to local tourists. Later, Wednesday, with the assistance of Eugene, sneaks into the Crackstone family chamber. She finds a painting of the old meeting house which includes the girl from her vision. Shortly after, she also finds the book which the girl was carrying. However, when Wednesday notices that the pages are blank, she suspects it is a fake. Just then, the caretaker, Arlene, arrives and catches her. Wednesday asks about the original book, and Arlene hesitatingly reveals that it was stolen last month. Tyler and Wednesday later reunite at the coffee shop. Tyler reveals that what is left of the original meeting house is out in the woods. When the latter inquires about Joseph Crackstone, it is essentially a ruin and meth heads use it as a crash pad. Wednesday and Thing rush into the woods in search of Joseph Crackstone's home. Wednesday has a vision. All of a sudden she travels 400 years in the past. This time, we see the blonde girl she encountered in the earlier vision. There are villagers who are encircling the girl as they call her the devil's spawn. Soon, Joseph Crackstone arises from the crowd and calls her Goody Addams. He accuses her of being a witch and condemns her to die in a barn stuffed with other accused folks, including her mother. In turn, Goody also accuses them of stealing their land, slaughtering the innocent, and robbing them of their peaceful spirit. Enraged, Joseph stares at her for a while and sets the barn ablaze. Goody tries to free her mom, but all her efforts go in vain. At last, when there is no hope left, she escapes via a trapdoor. Meanwhile, Wednesday is watching everything with them in the barn. Goody's sin approaches her and declares that Joseph will not stop his crusade until he has killed them all. With this realization, Wednesday awakens from her long vision and tells Thing everything. They are startled to see the same monster that killed Roland lurking behind them. Wednesday chases it down in the rain but is unable to keep up. As a result, she follows the footprints, which strangely begin to resemble human footprints. This reveals the monster's true identity as a human. She then runs into Xavier and tells him what she witnessed. He wants to examine the tracks, but the rain has washed them away. The next day, everyone gathers in the town square for the unveiling of a new statue honoring Joseph Crackstone. While the mayor and Larissa announce the statue, Wednesday plays an instrumental version of Fleetwood Mac's Don't Stop with the Jericho marching band. However, disaster strikes. Disaster ensues when Thing, as per Wednesday's orders, sets the statue in flames. While others run away in horror, Wednesday's eyes gleam with vengeance as she swiftly plays the cello. Later, Principal Larissa suspects and blames for the incident. However, Wednesday refuses to have done anything and instead confronts Larissa for refusing to acknowledge the bloody, racist truths on which Jericho was founded. That night, the homeless man from earlier is attacked by the monster and his camera begins taking pictures of the incident. Moments later, the sheriff and his crew arrive at the forest ruins and find the homeless man dead. They discover footage on his camera that may reveal the identity of the killer. After developing the photos, the sheriff examines the killer's face, which resembles a monster from a nightmare. Wednesday and Thing stops by the Jericho coroner's office in hopes to examine the homeless man's body further for potential clues. She takes careful notes as she examines the corpse. When the sheriff and the coroner appear unexpectedly in the office, Wednesday runs away. The sheriff and the coroner talk about the case and the coroner shows him the severed foot of the homeless man. It lacks 2 toes. After the sheriff leaves, The coroner notices one of the mortuary shelf doors is cracked open. He discovers Wednesday within, but Wednesday is excellent at pretending to be a corpse. So, he doesn't suspect anything. The scene cuts to M's, Thornhill's class, where everyone's abuzz about the upcoming revenge dance. She later snoops around Xavier's mysterious art studio and discovers a slew of sketches that resemble the monster. She grabs a few drawings and tries to escape, only to be met outside by the artist himself. Thankfully, he isn't suspicious and instead wonders if she might invite him to the Raven dance. Wednesday asks Xavier to accompany her to the dance in order to conceal her breaking into his studio. He agrees. Wednesday then goes to the sheriff with Xavier's drawings. The sheriff displays one sketch alongside the photo he discovered on the homeless man's camera roll. It's a tie. The sheriff reluctantly agrees to collaborate with her if she brings substantial evidence. She does, however, suspect Xavier. After all, he is capable of bringing artwork to life. Meanwhile, Enid meets Lucas at a coffee shop. Lucas is the mayor's son and a bully. He invites Enid to the Raven End dance, which she gladly accepts. Wednesday meets Tyler, who shows romantic interest in her. He wishes to accompany her to the dance. Wednesday, on the other hand, claims she must prioritize hurting Tyler's feelings. Wednesday then joins Eugene at the beekeeping club. She shows him the sketches, and Eugene seems to recognize the cave in the picture. He then takes her to a nearby cave, claiming that he saw it when he was out researching bees. There, they find a claw lodged in the cave wall. Next, Wednesday returns to Xavier's art studio to find a piece of evidence with DNA that'll match the claw. She finds a bloody rug and puts it inside her bag. Suddenly, Xavier catches her red-handed. He realizes she had hidden motives for asking him to the dance. Wednesday inquires if he's the monster. Xavier explains that this creature has been haunting his dreams for a while, so he sketched its likeness on paper. Unfortunately, the beast came to life, and its claws scratched Xavier's neck. Having realized that Wednesday had tricked him, Xavier angrily kicks her out. After realizing she had tricked him, later Wednesday places the claw and bloody rug on the sheriff's desk. She then instructs him to conduct tests on them. Meanwhile, Thing secretly types a note on Wednesday's typewriter and delivers it to Tyler at the coffee shop. It's Raven dance party time. While other students dress up for the event, Wednesday plans to do cave research with Eugene. Tyler unexpectedly knocks on her door with a bouquet. Thing, it turns out, wrote a heartfelt apology for Tyler luring him to the dance on Wednesday. He also obtained a stunning black gown. Wednesday is initially irritated with Thing for acting without her knowledge. However, forgives when she sees the stunning gown. Tyler is amazed when he sees Wednesday dressed in that gown. Unfortunately, Eugene is taken aback by Wednesday's sudden change of plans. She assures him that the investigation will resume the next day. She also advises him not to venture into the woods alone. However, he defies her order and sets out on his own quest. On the dance floor, everyone is taken aback by Wednesday's stunning gown. Xavier can't keep his feelings for hurting himself, so he approaches her. He finally tells her about his ongoing conflict with the sheriff's son. Wednesday then informs Tyler of her conversation with Xavier. Tyler used to hang out with the bullies. We learn on last year's outreach day they destroyed Xavier's wall painting and assaulted him. Tyler explains that he is no longer that person. Wednesday doesn't hold it against him, claiming she would have gone further. Meanwhile, we see Lucas texting his friends who intend to exact vengeance on the outcasts for the burning of the Joseph Crackstone statue. Wednesday then surprises everyone by performing her exceptional goth dance steps on the floor. Eugene has returned to the cave site in the woods. He watches as someone sets it on fire. Back in the dance, Lucas and the bullies turn on the sprinklers at the dance, squirting red liquid all over. The dance floor is now drowned in red paint. Everyone screams and tries to run, but they just end up falling again and again. Suddenly, Wednesday has a vision featuring a terrified Eugene and his death. Wasting no time, she runs for the woods to find him. Meanwhile, Eugene tries to escape the monster after hearing its snarls. Wednesday calls out for him, but to no avail. Unfortunately, the creature attacks Eugene before she can reach him. When she finds Eugene, he's covered head to toe in blood. The class teacher, M's Thornhill, also arrives at the scene and inquires if he's alive. In the next scene, we see Wednesday flipping through her father's police file. In the following scene, we travel back 32 years to a stormy night when Larissa discovers a dead body in the Nevermore courtyard. Young Gomez stands on scaffolding with a sword in his hand. He's drenched in blood. We see the cops arresting Gomez while young Morticia confesses that she's never been more in love with him than when he's handcuffed for murder. We've arrived in the present day for Nevermore's parents' weekend. As usual, Gomez, Morticia, Pugsley and Lurch arrive in style. Principal Larissa addresses all the visiting families and students. Enid laments the entrance of her werewolf family. Sure enough, Enid's mother instantly criticizes her daughter, namely for not developing her lycanthrope abilities. Meanwhile, Morticia and Gomez meet their child and question her about her time at Nevermore. We also see Bianca's mother, Gabrielle, making an appearance at the event. Morticia reads Larissa's yearbook and reflects on happy memories she recalls Larissa and Morticia performing for the talent show, and Principal Larissa informs the Addams family that the therapist wants them to attend a group session on Wednesday. The Addams agree to undergo psychotherapy. Meanwhile, Sheriff Galpin is on the phone at the coffee shop inquiring about the monster's claw DNA tests. He notices the Addams family's sleek black car approaching. The sheriff then receives a call about Dr. Anwar, the medical examiner who committed suicide. Next, the Addams clan sits with Dr. Valerie Kinbot for a group chat. Pugsley admits that he misses his sister, as do Gomez and Morticia. But Wednesday is in for something else. She whips out her father's police file and demands some answers. Who is Garrett Gates, and why did Gomez kill him? A furious Morticia reprimands her daughter for searching up this info now. This is an old case and the charges against Gomez were dropped. Enraged, Morticia storms out. Then, Wednesday tells her mother she plans to dig deep into whether the latter supports her. Meanwhile, Bianca meets with Gabrielle at the coffee shop, who reveals the real reason why she's in town. Gabrielle leads a cult called Morning Song, where she manipulates people for money. However, her siren song is weakening. She married a guy Bianca despises named Gideon, and they both hope Bianca, who changed her name when she arrived at Nevermore, will come home soon. Otherwise, Gabrielle will have to let slip the news that Bianca cheated her way into the academy. In the next scene, Wednesday visits Eugene in the hospital. The poor boy is in a coma in the ICU. Wednesday blames herself for the monster's attack on Eugene. Eugene's mothers pay a visit and thank Wednesday for her friendship because Eugene has never had one. Elsewhere, the sheriff visits the morgue to assess the situation. Dr. Anwar left a note before committing suicide expressing regret for forging documents in a murder case from 3 decades ago. Unfortunately, someone smeared black gum on the camera, so the police won't be able to determine what happened to Dr. Anwar. The sheriff believes the late coroner regretted manipulating the Gomez Addams. Now he has the evidence, he needs to lock up Gomez. Next, Wednesday watches while Morticia lays a red rose on Garrett's grave. While everyone's feasting in the school courtyard for the festivities, Sheriff Galpin barges in to arrest Gomez. The Addams family stands in shock as Gomez is handcuffed and taken away. Later, Wednesday and Thing visit her father in jail. She demands to know the truth. He reveals that Garrett became obsessed with Morticia, was stalking her, even. Morticia reported it to the police but to no avail. Finally, Gomez took an enraged Garrett down. After hearing his story, Wednesday's not so sure her father is guilty. Meanwhile, Enid's mother hands her brochures for a summer camp for lycanthrope conversion. The camp is intended for Enid to forcefully transform her into a werewolf as she has not yet become one. Later, we see Morticia standing in the meeting place for the nightshades when Wednesday visits her. Morticia discloses the truth of what occurred that fateful night. While Gomez was attempting to fend off Garrett, Morticia noticed how the latter foamed at the mouth in pure rage. Left with no choice, she stabbed him. After his body fell onto the courtyard below and was subsequently discovered by Larissa, Gomez grabbed the sword and urged Morticia to hide in her room. Turns out, Gomez took the blame for Morticia. After hearing that Garrett was foaming at the mouth, Wednesday muses whether he was plagued with something. Morticia follows her daughter's train of thought. Thus, the duo embarks on a trip to the Jericho cemetery. Wednesday digs up Garrett's grave for evidence, but the cops catch them and arrest the pair. We see them thrown into a cell next to Gomez. Thankfully, Wednesday managed to retrieve something from the grave and shows it to her parents. It's a finger tinged with blue, the color of nightshade. They realize that Garrett was already dying when Morticia stabbed him. Nightshade poisoned him. Wednesday suddenly has a vision. Garrett's father orders Garrett to poison everyone and Nevermore with nightshade. In the vision, a vial of poison is seen passing between the two. According to Wednesday, the vial broke in Garrett's pocket, poisoning him. Following their release, our mother-daughter team makes their case to Mayor Walker. Morticia accuses him of attempting to save his own skin. Walker did nothing when she told him about Garrett stalking her while he was sheriff. He attempted to conceal the facts of the case. Wednesday then displays Garrett's nightshade dead finger to him. Morticia orders Walker to release her husband as she will expose him for the liar he is. Fortunately, he agrees. As a result, all charges against Gomez are dropped for the second time. Sheriff Galpin even apologizes to Gomez and shakes his hand. Meanwhile, Enid stands up to her mother and orders her to accept her for who she is. She'll transform into a werewolf when the time comes. Wednesday bids farewell to her family. Later, after peering in Larissa's yearbook, Wednesday confronts her principal. Larissa didn't just imitate Judy Garland for Nevermore's talent show, she became Judy Garland. This means Wednesday has found out the truth about their principal. She is a shapeshifter. She disguised herself as Rowan in the day after his murder to convince everyone that nothing was wrong. Larissa claims she did everything she could to keep the school out of the spotlight. Wednesday inquires about Eugene's protection from the shape-shifting principal. Suddenly, Larissa and Wednesday hear clamoring and shouts outside. They find the message, "Fire will rain," written in fire on the school lawn. Wednesday then performs a ritual to contact our ancestor Goody Addams. She hopes that her ancestor will assist her in mastering her psychic abilities. Enid interrupts Wednesday's concentration while the two are talking. A mysterious figure slips a note card beneath their door. Wednesday must go to Joseph Crackstone's crypt at midnight if she wants answers. Wednesday is accompanied by Enid to the crypt, which turns out to be a birthday surprise party for Wednesday. She notices the writing on the old fireplace is the same as the writings burned on the school's lawn as they sing a happy birthday. Suddenly, she gets a vision and sees Goody warning her about Crackstone's impending visit. Goody cannot help her on her psychic powers, but she can direct Wednesday toward her next step. The two must explore the decrepit mansion looming before them. It holds the answers she seeks. Elsewhere, Principal Larissa visits the mayor and asks for his help tracking down the delinquents who left the burning message in her school. The mayor is happy to oblige and also tells her they are working on finding the person behind the recent attacks. Back at the academy, Xavier stands next to Wednesday while she examines the "Fire will rain" message on the school lawn. Xavier tries to find out the vision Wednesday had in the crypt. Since she still views him as a suspect in the ongoing investigation, she refuses to disclose any information. Later, Wednesday visits Eugene, who's still in a coma. Dr. Valerie Kenbot walks into the room carrying flowers. Eugene's mothers requested that the doctor check on him when they returned home for a few days. She tries to approach Wednesday, but she isn't looking for a free session, so she exits the room. Meanwhile, the mayor's investigation continues. He receives the death certificate for Garrett's sister, who allegedly drowned while traveling abroad. He is suspicious of her death and wants to know if it has anything to do with the recent attacks. In the local coffee shop, Wednesday visits Tyler, who wants to take her out on a date on her birthday. However, as usual, she gives him an unwelcoming gesture. The sheriff drops in and Wednesday informs him about what she found in Crackstone's crypt. But he essentially tells her to stop investigating the case. Later, Wednesday and Thing pay a visit to Xavier's art studio. She shows him a drawing she made of the irrigated mansion from her vision. Xavier pulls out the drawing he made of the same location, revealing that he has been having strange dreams again. The gated mansion used to belong to the Gates family. The next morning, Wednesday visits the mansion and sees the mayor leaving the house. She and Thing hop in the back of his car after overhearing his voicemail to the sheriff. He thinks he has figured out who is behind the attacks and asks to meet the sheriff at the cafe. He drives to the cafe, unaware that Wednesday and Thing are hiding behind. When they arrive in town, a blue Cadillac hits the mayor as he crosses the street to meet with the sheriff. Following the incident, the sheriff records a statement from Wednesday, who claims she crawled into the back of Walker's car to learn more about what he had discovered at the Gates mansion. Once back at Nevermore, the principal reprimands Wednesday by revoking her outside privileges, that is, going into town. The next morning, Wednesday calls Tyler and tells him that she has reconsidered his offer for a date, but as we know that this is only an excuse for Wednesday to leave the academy and continue her investigation. She then tricks Enid into sneaking out of school to redo of her birthday party. They sneak out and Tyler picks them up outside. Meanwhile, Xavier knocks on Wednesday and Enid's window, wherein he finds Thing pounding away on the typewriter. Thing reveals to him where the girls are headed. Next, our trio forges ahead into the Gates mansion, much to Enid and Tyler's shock. They finally realize they have been tricked by Wednesday. Tyler is disappointed as he thought they were going on a private date. Enid is disappointed as she thought they were going to have a girls' night out. However, they continue with Wednesday inside the mansion. At the mansion, Wednesday uncovers the blue Cadillac that struck the mayor. While inside, she finds a hidden altar for Joseph Crackstone, and the candles are still warm. Everyone splits up to search the haunted mansion. Next, Enid calls for Wednesday, and the pair investigate one bedroom that appears perfectly organized and tidy. Wednesday finds a music box with the initials, LG, on it. Laurel Gates. That's the name of the file Walker perused earlier. Before they can investigate further, Enid and Wednesday hear Tyler screaming for help, warning them about the monster. The monster chases the girls through the house and they find themselves in a basement. In the basement, they find the trophies the monster took from his victims. These trophies are body parts that belong to the murderer's victims. They don't have much time, so they get out of the house and circle back to find Tyler. They find him alive but with long claw marks on his chest. Xavier also arrives at that moment and helps them with Tyler. They then take Tyler back to his house. The sheriff wanders in and orders the Nevermore kids to depart. Next, Wednesday takes the sheriff back to the Gates house, but everything has been cleared out. There is no sign of the trophies or the monster. The sheriff thinks that she is lying and he is angry that she endangered his son's life. Wednesday is forbidden from seeing his son again. Once back in her room, she examines the music box that she retrieved from the mansion. Suddenly, a flurry of photos falls out from its bottom. They're all of Wednesday and her loved ones. Elsewhere in the hospital, we see someone with a gloved hand unplugging Walker's ventilator while unconscious in the hospital. The next scene shows Mayor Walker's funeral. Whoever unplugged his ventilator successfully killed him. Wednesday observes the mourners, thoroughly convinced the murderer is right under her nose. Suddenly, she spots a stranger lurking in the distance. She follows the stranger into the surrounding woods to discover it's none other than Uncle Fester. Fester tells his niece he needs a place to lay low for a few days after a job. Wednesday puts him up in Eugene's beehive barn. She then discusses her case at hand with her uncle. Fester mentions the creature Wednesday is looking for is called Hyde. Nathaniel Faulkner, who founded Nevermore Academy, studied the monsters extensively. Fester reveals that Faulkner kept his diary in the Nightshade's library. Wednesday proposes they head there later to retrieve it. Later that night, Wednesday goes to Nightshade's secret room. The uncle-niece team steals Faulkner's diary. In the next scene, Wednesday peruses the diary. She finds plenty of information on Hydes. They're artists by nature, meaning they are normal people. The Hyde side remains dormant until someone unlocks it via hypnosis or chemical inducement. Wednesday spies on Xavier the next morning, convinced he is the monster. The next morning, Wednesday spies on Xavier as she is convinced he is the monster. She and Fester secretly follow him and spy on him as he meets Dr. Kinbot in the woods. She thinks that Dr. Kinbot is the master and rushes to tell the principal. However, when she arrives at the principal's office, Wednesday is shocked to find the therapist there and decides not to inform the principal anymore. Later, Wednesday visits the cafe and shows the diary to Tyler. His dad sees them and chooses to ignore him. He is busy trying to find Fester, who apparently was involved in a bank robbery. After the sheriff leaves, Tyler asks Wednesday on a date and refuses to take no for an answer. They plan to meet at the Crackstone Crypt later that night. Wednesday goes to the date and asks Thing to stay back and watch the diary. At the crypt, Tyler has prepared a sweet and romantic date and Wednesday finds herself enjoying it. Tyler reasserts his desire to be more than friend, but Wednesday tries to talk him out of it. When Tyler romantically inches closer to kiss, his father, the sheriff, barges in with his team. The cops are looking for Fester. After her interrupted date, Wednesday returns to her dorm to find it completely messed up. Whoever did this also stole Faulkner's diary. The culprit also stabbed Thing through the palm and affixed him to the wall. Wednesday rushes Thing to Uncle Fester and demands he does something. Fester warms up his electrical abilities and attempts to resuscitate Thing via electroshock. Thankfully, Fester succeeds, bringing Thing back to life. Wednesday asks her uncle to leave the school premises the next day as the police are closing in. The next day, Bianca and Luca approach Wednesday and tell her they have information on the person who killed the mayor. Lucas found some information his dad left on his laptop. He thinks his dad recognized Laurel and was about to out her when she killed him. According to them, a 90-year-old heiress purchased the Gates mansion and passed a year later. Her caretaker's name was an anagram of Laurel Gates. So, Laurel returned to Jericho to exact revenge on those who harmed her family. Wednesday's parents, the mayor, and the coroner are prime examples of this. Wednesday suspects that Dr. Valerie Kinbot is the killer. Next, she decides to visit her therapist Drive. Kinbot, who she thinks is the master of the Hyde, and confront her. The therapist is confused by her accusations and thinks Wednesday has finally lost it. After Wednesday leaves, Dr. Kinbot calls the principal to complain about Wednesday's accusations. While on the phone, she hears someone in the bathroom. Upon opening the door, we see the Hyde monster spring on the doctor. Later, Principal Larissa sits with Wednesday in the hospital's waiting room when the sheriff informs them of Dr. Kinbot's death. Wednesday decides to end it all, so she goes to Xavier's secret art studio and confronts him. She notes how accurate his sketches of the Hyde monster are. Xavier continues to deny the accusations. Suddenly, the sheriff and his crew barge into the studio, having found the victim's belongings in Xavier's studio. With evidence on hand, they arrest Xavier. Poor Xavier repeatedly tells the police that he is being framed, but no one believes him. Next, Wednesday wanders into the local coffee shop. After some flirting, she finally kisses Tyler. Suddenly she is hit with another vision. In the vision, she sees Dr. Kinbot lying in a pool of blood with none other than Tyler, who has just transformed from a raging monster to a human. He remains shirtless and bloody, looming above Dr. Kinbot's lifeless body. Turns out, Xavier is innocent after all. Wednesday rushes out of the shop post-vision, paralyzed with fear, leaving Tyler confused about what went wrong. Later that night, Wednesday calls Tyler into the woods. He thinks it's another date. Wednesday reveals him to be the Hive monster. Tyler of course denies it and questions why she would meet him alone if he were the murderous creature. Surprisingly, a few Nightshades members including Bianca and Yoko emerge from the shadows to assist Wednesday. They take him to Xavier's art studio and chain him to the chair. Wednesday begins questioning him. Tyler's mother was a Hyde and she believes Tyler inherited the genes from her. He claims his mother suffered from severe bipolar disorder, but she too was a Hyde. Tyler then emphatically denies everything. Wednesday is not moved by his fake plea and switches it up to torture him, believing that a Hyde only understands pain, so perhaps torturing will trigger Tyler. Next, Wednesday whips out 2 tasers, giving the other students a pause. They did not agree to be tortured. When Wednesday starts shocking Tyler, others leave because they don't want to be a part of it any longer. Meanwhile, the sheriff is listening to tapes of Dr. Kinbot's sessions with Tyler. Turns out he was one of her clients as well. She explains how the loss of his mother left deeper psychological scars than she initially realized. Just then, the sheriff gets a call from Principal Larissa, informing him about Tyler's kidnapping. Bianca and the others had rushed to inform the principal about what's happening. Next, the sheriff and his crew barge into the art studio before Wednesday can inflict more pain on Tyler. Wednesday and Tyler are taken to the police station. Principal Larissa tells Wednesday that Galpin won't press kidnapping charges. As Wednesday is about to leave the police station, Tyler asks to speak to her privately. He confesses to the crime and tells her that every time he killed, he felt thrilled by his victim's fear. He warns her that she has no idea what is coming next. Consequently, the principal decides enough is enough and expels Wednesday and tells her to get ready to leave the school the next afternoon. Wednesday tries to convince her to give her more time to prove that Tyler is a Hyde. The principal refuses and says she is disappointed in how Wednesday turned out to be. Next, Wednesday and Enid bid a bittersweet farewell. She even shares a goodbye with Bianca and the Nightshades and warns them to be prepared for what Tyler is planning. Meanwhile, Miss Thornhill gives her white oleander as a farewell gift and wishes her well. Wednesday pays a visit to Eugene, who has awoken from his coma. Before leaving town, Eugene sits upright in his hospital bed surrounded by bee-themed gifts. Our beekeeping club besties finally reunite. Wednesday asserts that Dr. Kinbot set the Hyde cave ablaze and she controlled Tyler before he turned on her. However, Eugene recalls seeing someone wearing a black coat and boots before the cave burst into flames, red boots to be exact. Wednesday quickly realizes that the only person she has seen with red boots is Ms. Thornhill. Next, she returns to the school and confronts Ms. Thornhill in the school's conservatory. Ms. Thornhill initially brushes off the accusations but grows increasingly frustrated with Wednesday's persistence. Wednesday tells her that Tyler confessed everything to her. She points out Ms. Thornhill's wicked plans and how she triggered Tyler's Hyde via plant chemicals. Now, Tyler refers to her as his master. Meanwhile, Tyler appears from behind and observes the conflict. When confronted with Wednesday's bare facts, Miss Thornhill confesses and asks Tyler to kill Wednesday, except Tyler isn't the real one. It's Principal Larissa who has shape-shifted into the boy. To Miss Thornhill's surprise, the principal quickly transforms back. She then asks Ms. Thornhill, Laurel to cooperate. Ms. Thornhill, at loss, injects Larissa with nightshade poison. Unfortunately, the Principal Larissa dies seconds after the poisoning. Then, Ms. Thornhill knocks Wednesday unconscious with a shovel. Meanwhile, Eugene videocalls Enid and reveals Ms. Thornhill is the baddie, and Wednesday and Principal Larissa went to confront her. Enid vows to check the conservatory for them. Just then, Thing arrives and frantically fills Enid in on the dire situation and Wednesday's kidnapping. Then, we see a blood moon rising in the sky. Wednesday wakes in the crypt while chained to the wall. Ms. Thornhill reveals her plan to eradicate the school. She is planning to bring back Crackstone using the body parts of Tyler as a hide collected from his victims. Turns out, Goody didn't only kill Crackstone, she cursed his soul too. Ms. Thornhill hopes to use Wednesday to unseal the blood lock on the tomb that Goody locked Crackstone in. We learn that Wednesday is the key to opening it up as she is the living descendant of Goody. The ritual needs to be done on a night of a blood moon, so Ms. Thornhill has it all planned. In the meantime, the sheriff is on his way transporting the falsely accused Xavier to prison. But when he gets a call from an officer alerting him that Eugene's parents believe something wrong is happening at Nevermore, he decides to go to the school. Back at the crypt, Ms. Thornhill moves Wednesday to the seal on Crackstone's tomb and slices the latter's hand. The ritual awakens Crackstone, who promises his vengeance will be swift and true. Wednesday tries to confront him, but he stabs her and they leave her for dead. Thankfully, Goody appears before her and tells her how to defeat Crackstone. She tells her to use the talisman necklace her mom gave to her. The talisman will allow Goody to pass through Wednesday and heal her, but she will never be able to see her again. Wednesday agrees and is healed by her ancestor. Back at the academy, Enid meets with Bianca and the Nightshades in the Nightshades library. Enid suggests the Nightshades and the Sirens use their manipulative ability to evacuate the school. She then volunteers to take things and search the woods for Wednesday. As she rushes to save Wednesday on Blood Moon Night, Enid finally starts transforming into a werewolf. Back in the woods, the sheriff changes his mind and decides to track the location of his son. He leaves Xavier locked in his car and heads into the woods. Thankfully, Xavier is freed by Thing. After being healed, Wednesday rushes to stop Crackstone but meets Tyler on the way. He morphs into his hide monster and starts attacking her, but Enid appears in her full wolf form and starts fighting the monster. Meanwhile, Crackstone arrives at the school and begins destroying everything in sight. The battle between the werewolf and the hide turns into a brutal, bloody bath. Enid walks away victorious, transforming into a human in time for Thing to find her. The sheriff discovers Tyler lying unconscious and naked in the leaves, covered in blood. Next, Wednesday returns to Nevermore and arms herself with her father's sword. She prepares to slash Crackstone, but he is too strong. Xavier arrives at the scene and shoots an arrow at Crackstone, but the Walking Dead turns the arrow back in the former's direction. Wednesday steps in front of it, taking said arrow in the shoulder. Wednesday rises to her feet and continues fighting Crackstone. Unfortunately, her sword snaps into several pieces. Our smart heroine remembers what Goody told her about defeating Crackstone and stabs him in the heart with a piece of what's left of the sword. He dissipates into thin air, but the fight is not over as Ms. Thornhill charges in with a gun. Luckily, Eugene makes his grand entrance with his bees and makes them attack her. The school is finally saved. Later, Enid reunites with the Nevermore students hiding out in the woods. Then, she runs to embrace Wednesday. In the next scene, we see the Addams family butler, Lurch, removing the last of Wednesday's belongings from her room. Classes have been cancelled for the remainder of the semester. Wednesday bids farewell to her friends and then spots Xavier lounging on the floor above her. Xavier gives her a gift. It's a phone, and he even puts his number in the contacts. The final scene of the series shows Lurch driving Wednesday home. While sitting in the backseat of the family car, she receives a text from a mysterious someone. They send her pictures claiming they're watching her. Meanwhile, we see an armored truck on the road, with a subdued and bound Tyler inside. Suddenly, he wakes and begins transforming into his hide monster.